But who was the father? Was it her husband or was it her lover? Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm in Dorchester in Dorset. Going to take a little walk around the town and discover some of the town's more grisly past, because this video is all about executions and their locations. And along the way we'll discover a few more interesting facts about the town of Dorchester as we make our way down to the old prison. But there are a few interesting people who can call Dorchester their home. Thomas Hardy was born here on the 2nd of June 1842. He was a famous author. He wrote The Mayor of Casterbridge and Tess of the D'Urbervilles. There's also Llewellyn Powys. He was born here on the 13th of August 1884, and he was an essayist and novelist. And yeah, I hadn't heard of him either, but he's quite popular around here apparently, so I've given him a little mention. Then there's the Reverend Henry Moule. Well, he was born in 1801, and he was the vicar of Fordington, little parish just inside the town of Dorchester. But he's famous for saying prayers with a lady called Elizabeth Martha Brown, who was the last lady publicly hanged in the town of Dorchester, and I'll talk about that a little later in this video. But that's not his only claim to fame, because he also invented the dry earth closet, which was a form of toilet. Basically, he invented a bucket of soil with a seat around it. Sounds about as exciting as using a modern day chemical toilet. Yuck. But also, as Sir Frederick Treaves was born here on the 15th of February 1853, and he was the physician to King Edward VII, and also performed an appendectomy on him as well. But that's not his only claim to fame, because one of his clients was a man called Joseph Merrick, and history knows him better as the Elephant Man, and he's buried in the cemetery just ahead of me. So let's go and try and find his grave. Cemetery dates from 1856, and looking around me there's quite an array of stones here, all quite different. I'm not sure where Sir Frederick Treaves' gravestone is. All I know is it's a very tall Celtic cross, and it's behind one of the two chapels. So I'm just walking down the middle of the three paths, and hopefully I might be able to spot it. I'm normally fairly good in cemeteries at spotting graves. Found one in Halesworth a few months ago, and that was relatively easy to find. I thought it might be difficult, but this one, gosh, there's a lot of Celtic crosses. Oh dear. I do know it's behind one of the chapels, so oh, that looks promising. Let's have a look down here and see what we can find. I think it's this one down here by the tree. Yes, this is the gravestone here. That's quite a lucky find. Oh, he actually died in Switzerland on the 7th of December 1923. And he was cremated, and his ashes were interred here, along with those of his daughters, one of whom died of a perforated appendix. Quite ironic that he saved the life of the king but couldn't save his own daughter. But there we go, the grave of Sir Frederick Treaves, surgeon to King Edward VII, and his famous client Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man. Quite interesting walking around that cemetery. I spent a few minutes having a wander around some of the other stones. I discovered a few military ones as well. RAF pilots who have been shot down during the Second World War. Some of them at a young age. So very brave, courageous young men who lost their lives to win us our freedom. But now let's move on to some of the execution sites around Dorchester. These earthworks that I'm walking into now is known as the Maumbury Ring. It's actually originally a Neolithic henge. It dates back from 2,500 to 4,000 years before the birth of Christ. So that's what, 4,500 to 6,000 years ago. During the Roman occupation, it was used as an amphitheatre, and then during the Civil War, 1642, 1648, there was a parliamentary gun in here. It was a fort which defended the south side of Dorchester. But it's what happened here in the years after, especially in the year 1685, because this was a site of numerous executions. People were burnt at the stake here, and others were hung, drawn and quartered. The worst punishment that could be given down to anybody. And Judge Jeffreys, during the assizes of 1685, sentenced a lot of people to be hung, drawn and quartered. Events which became known as the Bloody Assizes came about from the Battle of Sedgemoor, which occurred on the 6th of July 1685, just outside Bridgewater, about 35 miles northwest of here. This was the failed rebellion by James Scott, Duke of Monmouth, who tried to seize the throne from James II, and of course it failed. James Scott was the eldest illegitimate son of King Charles II, and he reckoned he had a claim to the English throne. But of course he didn't, because he was illegitimate. So he set about this rebellion. The rebellion failed, and all the men who had joined his rebellion and taken up arms against the king were all rounded up. And so was James Scott, and he was beheaded outside the Tower of London on the 15th of July that year. And that was the bloodiest execution in British history. In total, 292 people were sentenced to death here at the assizes in Dorchester. Out of those, only 74 were executed, 175 were transported to the colonies, 9 were fined or whipped, and 54 were actually acquitted of all charges. Out of those 74, well, they were hung, drawn and quartered here, which means they were dragged to this place from the prison cells. Here they were hung by the neck until they started to choke. They were cut down. Their private parts were cut off in front and burnt in front of their face. They were disemboweled, and their bodies were cut into 4 pieces. And just before they drew their final breath, dying in agony, their head was severed. The worst punishment in British history. The steep banks which surround the site offered a good vantage point for all the executions that have occurred here over the years. But they didn't just happen in 1685, because years later this location was used for even more executions. And one that comes to mind is a lady called Mary Channing, who died here on the 21st of March 1706. Her execution was witnessed by over 10,000 people. She was notorious in the town. She was born Mary Brooks in 1687 to Richard and Elizabeth Brooks. She was a bit of a wayward child, and at age 17 she was married off early to a grocer called Thomas Channing. The wedding took place on the 15th of January 1704. However, despite being married, she also kept a lover. Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this story. So she set about murdering her husband, and she poisoned his milk. She was eventually found guilty at the assizes on the 28th of July 1705 and sentenced to be burnt. But she couldn't be burnt straight away because she was pregnant. But who was the father? Was it her husband or was it her lover? Sadly, the history books don't tell us that, and they don't tell us what happened to her son either. At least I haven't been able to find that out. If you happen to know, I'd be quite interested in finding out. So just drop a comment below, please. Let me know. But she gave birth in prison to her son, and then a couple of months later, she was executed here in front of a large crowd. Just one of many people who have lost their life here at the Maumbury Ring. And standing in the middle of the ring today, it's so peaceful, it's so quiet, it's so tranquil. And this is used by locals for social events, dog walking, and it's a nice quiet green spot, green location to enjoy here in the town of Dorchester. But I wonder how many people who walk through here for social occasions actually remember all the events that have happened here throughout history and the amount of people who lost their life here. Absolutely fascinating walking around the ring there, Maumbury Ring. The history all the history that's in one location is just quite incredible. What, the 4,500 to 6,000 years of history all in one location, absolutely incredible. We'll just walk down a little further to the railway station. Railway came to Dorchester in 1849. And they have a thriving railway station here. I remember coming through here many years ago on the train. I don't think it's changed much. But let's see what else we can discover here in Dorchester. Just around the corner from the railway station is Brewery Square. This is a new development. It used to be the site of the old Eldridge Pope Brewery, which was founded back in 1879. Although the origins of the brewery go back to 1831. And there's still some remnants of the brewery here, which is quite nice. There's a tall chimney, and one or two of the buildings have survived as well, which is quite nice. Let's take a closer look and oh, it's on a building site. That's not very good, is it? I'll try and get some pictures as best I can. But I always seem to find points of interest next to a building site. I had this problem in Luxembourg last year. Everywhere I go, they were digging the place up. They're digging up here as well, but never mind. What I have found is a very large deck chair. This looks a lot of fun. Oh dear. This seemed like a good idea at the time. I'm not so sure now. What I've got to do now is work out how to get out of this deck chair. I have problems sometimes with normal size ones, but oversize, oh dear, let's have a look. I can't get out. Oh dear, I can't get out. I can't get out. I can't get out. This is crazy. Oh dear. How am I gonna? Oh dear, how am I gonna get out of this deck chair? Oh dear. Oh. Well, I did it. I got out. I'm not going to try that again. I'm daft. Of all the silly things to do. Now let's go and try and discover some history. Oh dear. They've got another of those brewery vats here. I think this is where you actually put the hops in and actually brew the beer. Not too up on the brewing process, but I believe that's what it's used for. If you happen to know, just drop me a comment. I'm sure there's someone watching who's an expert at brewing. I just like drinking beer sometimes. Never mind. This is the best we can find. Just up ahead is a statue of a shire horse. Sadly, there's no plaque to tell me who the sculptor was, but it is rather impressive. I'm not sure what breed it is, but shire horses were workhorses. They worked the land in olden days. They pulled barges up along canals, and of course, they delivered the beer as well. The dray cart would deliver beer to the brewery, deliver beer from the brewery to the pubs, and it'd be done on a horse-drawn cart. I do remember seeing those. Wow, that shows my age, doesn't it? Yes, in the early 70s. I was growing up, both pulling barges and delivering beer. Quite an impressive sight to see, and some breweries still have dray horses and carts, which is rather nice. Well, now let's see what else we can discover in Dorchester on the way to another of the town's execution sites. One thing I do like about walking around different towns is looking for blue plaques. And they have one here, and it's to a Captain Gerald Robert O'Sullivan VC, and he was his home here from June 1913, until he was killed in action on Hill 70 at Silver Bay at Gallipoli in 1915. There's even a cannon outside. I'm not sure if that's I'm not really up on. Doesn't look First World War to me. It looks a bit older. If you happen to recognise it, just drop a comment in the comment section below, and let me know. I'm trying to build up a little bit more knowledge on various artillery pieces. I seem to find quite a few on my travels. Especially found some in Trieste last year, really rather interesting. But just across the way here is the town's war memorial. It commemorates the 240 people who died from Dorchester residents who died during the First World War, and also the 85 who died during the Second World War. Across the road. But what's interesting for me is just next to it is a Penfold. They've got a Penfold here in Dorchester. It's called a Penfold box, or a Penfold hexagonal, after John Warnham Penfold, the man who designed the post box back in 1966. And they're very rare, and it's an absolute treat to see one. Haven't seen one since Ipswich a few months ago, but there we go. They've got a Penfold here in Dorchester, and this one has VR on the front, Victoria Regina for Queen Victoria, who was on the throne then. Really nice surprise to see that. Really nice little find. And I say they are very rare. So if you have one in the town where you live, go and take a look at it, because there's a little piece of history there. But anyway, down here is another of Dorchester's execution sites. This quite delightful little tree-lined path. It's actually very wide for a public footpath, but most pleasant to walk along. Still can't get over seeing that 1866 Penfold. I really must do some investigating and see how many more there are in our towns and cities. I'd quite like to find a few more. But just up here is another of Dorchester's execution sites, and it's marked by 3 impressive statues. These statues stand on a place known as Gallows Hill, and the amount of people who were executed here throughout history is quite staggering. This was the principal execution site of Dorchester up until around 1703, when executions moved to the Maumbury Circle. These statues were actually sculpted by Elizabeth Fink and installed in 1986. But this was the site of Dorchester's gallows. And as I say, people from all walks of life were hung here, many for their faith during the reign of Elizabeth I, and many prisoners who have walked up from Dorchester Prison up Icen Way to this location were also hung. This monument is a nice reminder to everybody who walks past here of what happened here in the past. Today it's a really attractive suburb of Dorchester, and there's some houses all around, all residential. I'm sure all the residents are aware of just what a grisly location they have on their doorstep. But this is so the site of the gallows. But it was not an ordinary gallows. This was a cross-beam gallows. John Speed's map of 1610 shows a triangular-shaped gallows, so multiple people would have been hung here at once. And the method used was basically slow strangulation. The foot supports would have been pushed from beneath their feet, and they would take 15 to 20 minutes to die of slow strangulation. So there we go, the Masters Memorial here on Gallows Hill in Dorchester. I can't think of any other places in England that I've been to or that I know about that have held more executions than Gallows Hill here in Dorchester. It wasn't just hangings that took place, they also hung, drawn and quartered people there as well. Thinking perhaps back to 1594 and the Chidok martyrs. They were executed for their religious beliefs. Absolutely horrific punishment to undergo. But the road I'm walking down now is called Icen Way, and it's said to be haunted. Apparently on a still winter's night you can hear the sound of the horses and the chains of the condemned as they made their way up from the prison up to the site of the gallows, or whichever method of execution that was their fate. But yeah, it's supposed to be haunted, and to be honest, I'm not surprised. I believe very few ghost stories, but there has to be something in this one due to the fact of the sheer volume of people that made this their final walk up Icen Way. But it wasn't originally called Icen Way. It started off as Goal Lane, obviously at the goal at the bottom of High East Street at the bottom here, and it changed its name to Bell Street after the Bell pub that used to be located down here, and then Icen Way. But, it's quite different walking down here now compared to walking up the hill to your execution. Just down the bottom of the road, bottom of Icen Way, where it meets High East Street, there's a plaque on the wall which denotes where the old gaol was. It dates from 1305, and that's the reign of Edward I. So the condemned only had a short walk to go up the hill. Let's just walk a little bit up this road and down towards the prison and find some more tales of execution. This is the main car park area at the back of Dorchester Prison. This is one of the execution sites of Dorchester. The prison was completed in 1795 at a cost of £18,000, which is rather a lot. It's about £2,500 in today's values. It's actually built on the site of the old medieval castle, which was founded around 1154, and by 1290 the castle was no more, and the prison now stands in its place. And quite a number of people have been executed here over the years, including a lady called Elizabeth Martha Brown, and she was the last person publicly hanged in Dorchester. Elizabeth Martha Brown was a grocer by trade. She was married to a John Brown, her second husband, and he was violent towards her. And one day after he took a whip to her, she took an axe to him and killed him. And she was the last person, or the last woman, publicly hanged here in Dorchester on the 9th of August, 1856. In the crowd that day was a young Thomas Hardy. He went on to become a famous writer, and one of the books he wrote was Tess the d'Urbervilles. And it said that the character of Tess was largely based on Elizabeth Brown in her final scene. But although she was the last woman hung publicly in Dorchester, she wasn't the last person. That was James Searle, who was publicly hung on the 10th of August 1858, and he was found guilty of the murder of Sarah Guppy. Public executions were abolished by law in 1868. The Victorian age could no longer tolerate public executions as a form of entertainment, and nor the large crowds that they attracted. After that, executions moved inside the prison, and the last person executed was a man called David Jennings on the 24th of July 1941. It's here outside Dorchester Prison that I end this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.